Vroom, 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 vroom. That's right, baby. We're still on our motorcycle bikes, but we're no longer in the desert. We're donning our leather jackets for some ass up in here. I'm Adam.
And I'm Steve.
And this is Adam Steve's show. We are here to talk about movies, and there's so many. We're not even gonna waste any time. We're gonna get right into it. Steve, how'd you feel about Bike Riders?
Dude, Bike Riders was something I've been so excited about. I am a huge fan of the show Sons of Anarchy, probably one of my favorite shows of all time. I love like the bike rider culture, biking clubs, all that kind of stuff. And with Bike Riders, not only do we have a really solid cast with Austin Butler and our man Tom Hardy, I forget it's
Jodie Comer.
Jodie Comer. She was in Killing Eve. Also, just puts on a fantastic performance in this one too. But this gives you like where Sons of Anarchy takes place, obviously modern day biker culture. This goes to when like biker culture became a thing. Like these are just some buddies who just started a club together and just wanted to hang out, drink beers, and have fun, and then eventually become something bigger and bigger to the point where some of the guys that started it didn't even recognize what it started as. But all of the acting here was great. The story we go through, I really enjoyed it. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5. I don't know if I absolutely loved it as much as I was kind of hoping for, but at the end of the day, this was a solid ass biker movie. And what did you think about it?
I'm in love. I had a great time with this movie. Specifically, halfway through, I started to tear up. It wasn't sad, but I was just tearing up because I was like, I feel like I'm watching Goodfellas, and I'm like, they just don't make them like this anymore. You
For
know, it's just
real.
a guys being dudes, hanging out kind of a thing. I am a fan of when actors do fun accents. I think that that's really fun. Obviously, I'm a very big fan of Austin Butler's rendition of Elvis and Tom Hardy's rendition of Bane, and these are very iconic performances for their voices specifically. And yeah, I like it a lot. And oh my God, Jodie Comer pretty much takes the cake from both of them here with their accents. How did the accents impact you?
Yeah, I really liked it actually, because like I'm from like the Midwest area, and some of those accents definitely pop into Michigan here and there, because I believe it takes place in like the Chicago area.
Hmm.
So like I definitely recognize some of those dialects, even though they're not as crazy, I would say, maybe today as they were maybe back then. But yeah, the whole thing, like even not only the acting, but the setting and everything, they really capture like I think it's like the 60s or whatever I want to say. They really
Hmm.
capture everything, and from the outfits and just all of the buildings and everything and just all the different like bar room that they're kind of set up, just everything in there kind of made you feel like you were living in the 60s. And like you were saying about you kind of really enjoying your time there, I almost didn't want to leave when it was like definitely feeling like everything was wrapping up. It's like, damn, I would watch this if it was longer cut, honestly, just because I was enjoying that area that much. Like, I know I said 4 out of 5, but on a rewatch, I could easily bump this up to a 5, I think.
It's interesting that you bring up the runtime because this movie only runs at about 2 hours flat. And, I compared it to Goodfellas, a movie that, is sniffing 2.5 hours. And especially a lot of other Scorsese movies like this, not The Godfather, Jesus, The Irishman, that's like over 3 hours. And it gave me a stronger appreciation for those Scorsese movies because, like, he doesn't do sequels. And a lot of the joy of these movies these types of movies are hanging out with these characters and getting to spend a lot of time with them. There is no sequel. So yeah, give it to me as long as possible and then I
Hmm.
could watch it again later. It's a problem when it's something like Horizon and American Saga, which I also watched, where it's like we're just hanging out, but like I don't really like anyone that we're hanging out with. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly.
Whereas with Bike Riders, I'm enamored by this love triangle. But it is like a love triangle. I
Yeah.
mean, there is a hot commodity, and two different people want them to be committed to them, right?
Well, yeah, almost. I mean, you don't even have to necessarily say it could even be a person. Like, yeah, it's Tom Hardy, but even just say the club in general is the other love that is kind of pulling Austin Butler in different directions, whether he wants to be with Jodie Comer or if he actually wants to live this biker life that he kind of definitely always desires in a way. Like, he's a his character is so interesting because you really don't ever get to know a whole lot about him. He doesn't say a whole lot, and he's just a very like I don't know, simple solitude guy, but he loves what he loves and he does what he does, and no one's ever gonna change him, it seems like. And I
Mhm.
think Austin Butler really killed that role. I mean, everyone really did fantastic with it. I mean, we even had a cameo. Who what? It's what's his
Michael
name?
Shannon wasn't.
Michael Shannon.
Mhm.
Yes, he was
Mhm.
fantastic. I loved him showing up as like I think he was like from a different club or whatever, like from California or something. It was just like
Mhm.
passing through. But him just being there just made it that much more fun because he fits right into honestly almost every role he's ever kind of cameoed in. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen that movie The Night Before or whatever with like Seth Rogen,
Yep.
and so like his little cameo in that too. He just has these small roles sometimes and sometimes steals the show like that. Like he has like maybe 5 minutes worth of screen time in this movie, but every minute he eats it up.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's what Scorsese movies do as well. They have small little roles for the with awesome people playing them, and they're these really iconic and memorable roles. And I just really love this movie. I love everything about it. I love the way that it looks. I'm a big Butler fan. I really love what Jodie Comer was doing. My personal favorite here is Tom Hardy. So it's kind of hard to understand him sometimes, but I thought the ending was really satisfying. Like the note they leave me off on, like I was like punching the air like
Hmm.
afterwards. Like so I've been doing an interesting thing this year where I do my top 10 list, but if there are movies that are officially listed as 2023, like Bike Riders, like Hitman, two of my favorite movies of the year, they're technically 2023 movies because I previously was like, no, whatever Letterbox says is the law. If it's not labeled as 2024, then it's not 2024. But I can't retroactively go back and release a top 10 list for 2023 with Bike Riders and Hitman on it.
Yeah.
So, instead, what I do now is I do a top 10 list and then I do like a tech category where I put the movies that are technically from the previous year and I say where they would be in my top 10 list. And it's kind of like a cheap way of being like making my top 10 list a top 13. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of an annoying distinction to make. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got you. I thought about doing that at one point, but my philosophy is now is if it has a wide release in the year, it's that year. Because like a lot of times they'll get the release date on like a IMDb or a letterbox because it had a run on the films or on the film festival circuit and whatnot, and it released that way, but it didn't get a wide release until like the next year. Like I have a feeling like we were talking about before we recorded Chris Stuckman's new movie that's gonna come out. It was bought, but I don't think it's gonna get a release fully until next year. So
Mhm.
it'll technically be a 2024 movie, I think, just because people saw it last weekend and everything, and it's starting to slowly release at different festivals and whatnot. But I won't be able to see it until then. So it's kind of like if the general public doesn't get to see it till then, just as to what I go off of now.
I'm really excited specifically for that movie's reception because the film community, especially the film critic community, on the one hand, they'll want, I guess the more firm film critics will be very critical and be like, you can't, you film critics can't be filmmakers too. But like people, like us on the ground who will, aspire to be like Chris Stuckman, we're going to sit there and be like super nice to the movie because, we would love to be where he is at,
Oh yeah.
so I'm really excited for that. But Bike Riders, yeah, well, this would be my third favorite movie of the year if it was from this year, like just behind Dune and Furiosa. I'm really Bike Riders pilled.
Yeah, I want to say right now, yeah, I think it's at my number five spot right now, I think. So it's definitely high up for me too. I would love to rewatch it. I've only seen it the one time, but really looking forward to watching it again and showing it to like my dad and my brothers and whatnot.
And some shocking stuff in this movie. Like I heard some people were like anticipating it being like more of an action heavy thing, and I didn't think that at all. I knew it was gonna be a drama straight up.
Yeah.
But the action in the movie is kind of brutal.
Yeah, they definitely don't hold back too much when it comes to what was probably going on in those biker communities, even in the early stages back then, whether it was the drugs or the violence and everything going on.
I think it's a combination of the summer release and the fact that it's gotten like lukewarm. Like it seems like this is a 3.5 out of 5 for most people. I mean, I'm at a 5 out of 5, like I said, but I can't wait to watch this again. Actually, if I wasn't recording right now, there was a showtime at 6 that my buddy's going to. and he wanted me to go, but we're hanging out later. But yeah, I'm so down to see Bike Riders again. I'm a little behind on movies at the moment, but I love it so much. I can't wait to get it on Blu-ray. But I don't know. I don't see it getting any nominations at this point, sadly. What do you think?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know if it'll even be remembered by that time, but
Yeah.
the people who love it, I have a feeling it'll have its little renaissance once it gets out onto VOD and whatnot, and people kind of find it, whether it's in the next few years and it becomes a little cult classic. But I like your comparisons to Scorsese and whatnot. Like it definitely fits into that category. And once more people see it, I have a feeling people will maybe that 3.5 will jump up a little bit more. But yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it again.
Probably the old soundtrack with all the hits, just the setting, the vibe. It's so Scorsese coded to me. I would say if anyone has a chance, I would give Jodie Comer, especially if she could fit herself into the supporting actress category. That's something you see that a lot, where like a movie that's nominated for nothing else, but it gets a little supporting actress nomination, you know?
Yeah, usually it's a movie that like no one ever heard of throughout the whole year except for like two people, and it's like, oh shit. So then that movie gets all the eyes on it right away. I would
Yeah,
love for that to happen.
well, because I just think it's too much of a trio of a movie that well, and she's also like the character who's like telling the story, so it's like from her perspective. So I think she will end up being, uh, called as the lead there, and then I
Yeah.
just think that the lead category will just be too competitive, and then this movie didn't get high enough of a rating, and hype, and no one saw this at the box office. Horrible box office.
Yeah, I think it was basically you and me just about.
Yeah. So, but I couldn't recommend it more. I love this movie so much. Just guys being dudes, and me, I'm a big Butler guy, so couldn't recommend this more.
Hell yeah. Get one out of the way real quick. Trigger warning on Netflix. Don't watch it. Next movie.
Yeah, I don't like her anymore. Jessica Alba. I used to be a huge fan, huge crush on her growing up, and yeah, sorry, she just doesn't do it for me anymore. And then she's not extremely talented, and she's not picking very high quality films.
Well, not only that, Netflix for every one good movie they somehow produce, whether it was what was it called? Body no. What was the one with Glenn?
Oh, Hillbilly Elegy?
No, no, no. With Glenn.
Glenn Close, because that's what I said. Think
No,
you're
no,
talking about Glenn
no.
Close.
The new guy. Glenn, whatever his
Glenn
name is.
Howerton?
Glenn Powell.
Glenn Powell. Oh, Hitman.
So yeah, for every
Hitman.
one Hitman we get fucking a million bad movies from Netflix. And this is one of those very many bad movies, whether it was the J-Lo one last month or this one coming
True.
out. Like all of
Oh,
these movies,
Atlas.
yeah,
Did you see A Family Affair with Nicole Kidman and Zac Efron?
I haven't. Like I'm a big Zac Efron guy and I want to watch it just for that reason, but I know I'll be sad.
Well, he's funny in it, but it's also like you're watching and you're like, Nicole Kidman, you got nominated for an Oscar a couple of years ago. You don't need to do this, sweetie. Like, but hey, if she's happy, I'm happy. But that one's not very good. But a lot of people are talking about like the difference in quality between the streaming sites. So actually, I would love to throw that question at you. Which streaming site, in your opinion, is delivering the most quality content and the most consistent quality content?
Purely from my own
Yeah, this is you. Your world. I'm listening.
consumption, I would probably say Amazon Prime is my favorite right now.
They got
Purely
some good stuff.
purely because like the movies are hit and miss sometimes. They got some good documentaries a lot of times, but the shows like The Boys and the spin-off show they did, Gen V, are all very cinematic shows and kind of they did something fun with the superhero world where everything's been so Marvel heavy and not as like violent and shit. And then these shows kind of just fucking flip that on its head and just do the most crazy shit you've ever seen on television. Honestly,
Mm.
in movies or anything, there's like huge orgies and stuff that they do, and just some of the most sexual and insane things you could think of. But the efforts that they put into this show and everything, I haven't watched the finale of this last season of The Boys, but it's some of the best television out there. Like there's political satire, it's great comedy, and it just seems like they're having a lot of fun. I think it's like Seth Rogen producing it. And like the guy, I think the creator is the guy who did like Supernatural for the last like 10 plus years of his life.
which explains Soldier Boy's casting.
Exactly. I've been shocked. And I mean, Jeffrey Dean Morgan was the dad on Supernatural like early on before he actually passed in the show too. So like the boys and
Oh.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan was recently casted in the boys too.
Well, I like that you told me that because I don't like his casting. I think he does a good job in the show. Yeah, I know, right? Adam watched a TV show, but it's all Lucas. He got me onto it a few years ago when we were living together, and just stuck with it. You know, Lauren really likes it too. But yeah, I think it's interesting that you say that because I didn't like seeing him in The Boys because I was like, oh, if I'm gonna watch an R-rated superhero thing, I would rather watch Watchmen.
Yeah, no, I can't agree with you there just because I'm a huge like comedy guy more than I am action at the end of the day most of the time. So
Mhm.
that's just where I lean towards, and I love all of the very much political satire when it comes to the real world, and they use a lot of real world events in the show.
Mhm.
So just the cleverness of all the writing in there really makes me laugh.
Well, Watchmen, yeah, obviously it's not comedic, but yeah, I'm there. I'm less there for the action and more there for the political satire. I'm just a big Watchmen fan. Like
Oh
I've seen
yeah.
all three cuts of the movie. I've seen the motion comic. I've seen the TV show. I've read the graphic novel.
Yeah.
Like I love Watchmen.
Yeah, I have the
Uh,
graphic novel around here somewhere.
yeah, but I'm really liking the show. There's certain things I really like about it, certain things I don't like about it.
Invincible is a good one that's on Prime too. Like they have a lot of good TV. Like I haven't been as big on some of the movies. They lean into a lot of rom-coms, it seems like lately with a lot of their originals, or like
Mhm.
the one that just recently came out was like the one that was I think it's a sequel to one that came out a few years ago about like Dave Batista being a spy
My
and like this
Spy, My
yeah,
Spy.
this little girl or whatever is like helping him. And they released a sequel to that. So like I haven't watched Roadhouse yet with Jake Gyllenhaal either, so I can't speak to the
It's
quality of that. I love the original Roadhouse though.
me too.
So yeah, I like a lot of Prime stuff. Like I said, Netflix has their hit and miss shit. Hulu, I don't know. Sometimes like one of the things I watched recently that said it was a Hulu original, I found out after getting through it that it was actually a Quibi original and that they fucking like edited it together to make it into a movie and put it on. It was like a TV show. It was like split up into like segments and it has Dane DeHaan and Micah Monroe. Micah Monroe from like Longlegs and
It
all these other
follows.
yeah, it follows all these different kinds of movies. So I was like, okay, this might be good. One of the worst things I've ever seen. It said it was released in 2024. It wasn't. It was made during COVID. They're literally the only two people in the whole thing. It's like he's a drive share person, like an Uber driver, who like basically kidnaps her and like tries to murder her and whatnot. And it's
Mhm.
very convoluted and stupid. But if you have 90 minutes and really want to like basically stab yourself in the ears with a movie,
Mhm. Well,
there
it's
you
funny that you
go.
bring up My Spy because actually an old friend of yours, Chad Klubine, he was talking to me about My Spy, and I didn't believe him. Like I called him a liar. I was like, "There's not a sequel to My Spy. I
Yeah.
didn't see My Spy. I'm not going to see My Spy." Which it just really hurts because I'm a big Dave Batista guy when it comes to wrestlers turned actors. I think he's undisputedly the GOAT.
Yes.
But at least currently. But yeah, so there's that, and it's also funny that you said Amazon Prime first because a movie that I worked on a long, long time ago was an Amazon Prime, straight to Amazon Prime. It wasn't an Amazon Prime original, but Hotel Transylvania 4, Transformania, which I watched the second two on your Voodoo. Not a fan, but I think the fourth one is better than the second two. So I guess yeah, Amazon, go Amazon. You know what I
I
mean?
I saw the boat one in theaters when I lived in Florida, and
The boat one.
I was the only adult man in that theater in a sea of children, and I really enjoyed
Yeah, I'm
it.
way more cynical about it. I'm just not a big Adam Sandler fan at all,
I get it.
and the animation style is really fun. That movie is just one big dance party. You know, they're
Oh
all
yeah,
just dance parties.
it's all just like vibes. It's all just like smiles, and you're just having fun, and that's what if you can do that in an animated movie, I mean, you're selling for the kids for sure, but sometimes that's what I need. Like the other
Yeah.
day, I was watching Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. It is July. I just like watching that movie a lot. So
Mm.
sometimes you just need vibes.
No, I agree with that sentiment. But yeah, I bring up the streaming thing because I saw something about Apple TV Plus where they were like, Apple TV Plus has consistently much better like quality content, And in 1 month, like Apple TV Plus gets as much viewership in 1 month as Netflix does in like, I think it was like a day or like a week. Like the disparity is like insane.
Yeah,
And I, it's just really sad. Well, because we just had the Fly Me to the Moon, which I saw, which is, it's propaganda, by the way. But that movie, it cost $100 million to make, and it made like nothing at the box office. And it's got two big movie stars, ScarJo and Channing Tatum,
the
Woody
only
Harrelson.
person I know that wanted to see that movie is my father. He like asked me the whole time, he's like, "Are you gonna go see that Fly Me to the Moon movie?" I was like, "I don't know." He's like, "I want to see it." I was like, "All right, maybe we'll go see it." But he's been working nights and shit like that, so he hasn't had time. But I was
Mhm.
like, "You might be the only person who's really excited to see that movie." I was like, "Granted, Greg Berlanti, I like him. I think he's a good director. He did that Love Simon movie. I thought that was an adorable movie."
Mhm.
And like he did like a lot of the CW stuff and did okay with that. So I mean, he's a competent guy, but nothing about this was really interesting to me. That's why I didn't see it, and still like if it's on streaming eventually I will, but jumping back to Apple Plus, I used to have a subscription to it for a while, and a lot of the shows that I started and never actually finished, great shows, but I think it's just the fact of getting to the app and remembering that it exists is a huge thing for me and
Mhm.
probably everyone else because like there's a lot of great shit on there, but I just whenever I go on it, there's literally buttons on my remote that are like Netflix, Hulu, Prime, Disney Plus, and those are a lot of the ones that I go to other than YouTube because like they're just in my face all the time. So if Apple
Mhm.
did a better job at maybe advertising all of the great shit they have, I feel like it would probably help. Because I mean, even on there, I think the Michael J. Fox documentary that came out last year or the year before is still a great documentary that I don't feel like people really know about that much because it's on there. And it
Mhm.
just like there's a lot, and like I think there was a show that had like the guy from How I Met Your Mother,
Josh Radnor.
Jason Segel.
Oh, whoops.
He was like a therapist, and you're good.
Oh, for
And
Harrison Ford.
yeah, and well, no, Harrison Ford was also like his like a they like shared a practice or whatever. He was also like a therapist and whatnot, but
Mhm.
and that was like and it was produced by the guy who created Scrubs, and it was like a dark comedy but a really good show. And like Ted
Mhm.
Lasso, really great show. Yeah, but like I said, no one really talks about it that often because like they get high level celebrities but they don't talk about it anywhere, it seems like.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because they seem to do this thing where they'll put a bunch of money into a movie like Killers of the Flower Moon, like Argyle, dump it in theaters and not promote it very much at all. And then when these movies fail spectacular, Killers of the Flower Moon is one that really bites, because I love that movie. It's
Hmm.
so great. And so just to know that, like, and it's so important too. So for that to fail the way that it did, because you could be like, oh, Argyle and Fly Me to the Moon, they're not very good, but Killers of the Flower Moon bombing, that's such a nail in the coffin. I mean, their big success is what, Coda winning Best Picture, right?
Yep, that was like 2 years, 3 years ago.
Exactly. So, I
And
hear
yeah,
they're scaling back a little bit on their content. And then you hear about these mergers every single week. There's a new merger being talked about. And great. I hope these things do get merged.
yeah, make them more affordable if anything. That's the biggest downfall. It's like I don't want to have to succumb to ever pirating, but when you make everything behind a paywall, you can't expect every single person in the world to spend $200 a month to be able to watch every single thing that every company wants to have their own Disney Plus, Hulu Plus, blah blah blah. NBC has their own, Fox has their own. It's like
Mm,
all right, I can't even fucking rent a movie anymore because you're gonna put it behind your fucking streaming service anyway. Like that's the thing too, where it's like movies don't stay long enough in the box office either anymore too for them to even make a significant jump when people know that once they become VOD, people can also go on those fucking pirate websites and watch it for free on there anyway. So it's like, oh, why even pay for the subscription to the streaming service or go to the theater when I can go on here and fucking just watch
mm,
this and not have to worry if I have to pay my bills later. Like it makes a lot of sense, but in the long run, people, I don't know, it just sucks for entertainment as a whole because there's no easy solution to any of it because at the end of the day, everyone wants to make money and the people at the
mm,
very top want to have the most money.
mm. Yeah, it's an unfortunate setup at the moment, but fuck it. I don't even know how we got here. It was we were just talking about the
We were
bike
talking about
riders.
fucking
No, and then
trigger
you brought up
warning.
trigger.
We're talking
Oh
about
my
fucking
god,
trigger warning. Trigger warning took us here for 20 minutes after I said
it was
we were
my
only gonna
fault.
talk.
It was my fault.
All right.
But yeah, trigger warning sucks. Move on. We
Um,
saw.
next in line, I think timeline wise, would be A Quiet Place Day One, which I don't have a whole lot to really jump into this one either. If you saw the other Quiet Place movies, you kind of already saw this one, other than Lupita Nyong'o, fantastic actress. We all knew that going in, and yeah, I mean, she puts on an emotional performance. Spoiler: she has cancer. That's what the movie's about, basically the whole time. It's like we want this lady to get her pizza. She wants her pizza, and there's a reason behind the pizza, and I won't say that, but it's a good enough story. It has
Mhm.
enough of a story to get you along, but there's nothing really that shocking when it comes to any of it. We know about these monsters already. None of them knew about the monsters, so that's kind of a fun angle, a little bit, I guess. Except they did that in the last Quiet Place movie too, kind of. They like showed like the before time with like the scene with the dad and everything like that. So like we kind of already saw what they were advertising for this one. So I mean, other than Lupita and the guy from Stranger Things, he was fine. There's nothing really a whole lot to offer.
Yeah, I found myself pretty disappointed. I love the first movie. I really liked the second movie, and the this new one I was like excited because I heart New York, and then Lupita Nyong'o I think is the most underrated actress working today. I think she's fantastic. I
Yes.
think maybe my favorite female lead in a horror movie in the 21st century, or maybe ever, is Lupita in Us. I think she's fantastic in that. Actually, watching Get Out, not Get Out, watching A Quiet Place made me go back and rewatch 12 Years a Slave, which is a movie I hadn't watched since theaters. I have a beautiful Blu-ray, never throw it on.
That is a hard one to rewatch, so I respect it. But
Oh,
yeah.
really rewarding though. I really
Oh,
recommend it.
100%. I mean, Lupita alone, I mean, she's one that like when it comes down to the conversation of horror and the Oscars, her performance as both characters in Us,
Mhm,
Oscar worthy easily. Like just a
mhm,
fantastic performance. And here, I mean, when the emotions need to come in and I mean, they wanted the character to like get the heartstrings pulling. She does it. She gets the job done just because she's that talented. But like I said, I mean, it's a passable enough movie and it's fun. It's not like a very boring watch, but at the same time, if you're looking to even like expanding upon the lore of A Quiet Place, which is a fun thing in my opinion. Like the monsters themselves are pretty cool. But this movie really didn't expand too much on anything. Like we already knew the weaknesses and everything.
mhm.
And yeah, they didn't really add anything new to it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think unfortunately the Quiet Place franchise should have been a oneer, just a one movie and then let's move on. Kind of like It Follows. Like I don't really like they're doing another one of those. But like the shtick is overdone. Yeah, I don't think we learned anything new besides the monsters, like how they eat the people. I don't think we knew that in the first two. Actually, I would love to ask you a question. What are the names of the monster? Like what species, what do they call the monsters in the Quiet Place? You've seen three movies now, so
Yeah, I don't even like I don't even I want to say crawlers, but I really don't even think they really no, I don't know.
I would like that better than the name they have. So you know about as much as Lupita Nyong'o does, because in an interview they asked her and Joseph Quinn,
Yeah.
they didn't know, and they're death angels.
Oh, I think I saw that exact interview, yeah. She was like,
Yeah, yeah. Which yeah. So we're not really learning much about the character or the sorry, we're not really learning much about the monsters. It's not really expanding the world at all. Like we saw day one in A Quiet Place Part Two, just in a different setting. And there's a lot of like smoke, and you can't really see what's going on. So I don't really like. Besides the Death Angels falling from like the skyscrapers, I don't really feel like we utilize the concept of being in the big city as much as we should have.
no, there was so much that you could have done here, but they just didn't do. Like one of the only things that I can remember right now. I mean, it's we're a month out of watching at this point for me, and the one of the only things I can remember, like I was like, haha, they did that thing. And it was like when they showed like the back of Killian Murphy's character, like you heard his thing like moving or something like that. Or like you saw his
Mhm.
backpack or like whatever it was. And I was like, oh, they're just referencing that Killian Murphy's character is in New York somewhere. And I was like, please don't make another one. I was like, I
Oh,
was
I
like,
didn't even
I was,
notice that.
yeah, I think they did something where like they were referencing his character like being in that area.
I know Jamon Hansu was there. That's the only reference I understood. A lot of people love the fucking cat. I did. I thought the cat was fine.
Yeah, the cat was
Um,
cute, but it was an annoying thing almost to a certain extent. It's like you're gonna worry about a cat over fucking like it's the only thing that scares me in those survival situations. I'm like, I get it. Animals are animals, but if I'm about to die,
oh yeah,
I'm
no,
not
yeah.
gonna put my life in for a fucking cat. Like I'll find
Mhm.
another cat.
And this is like semi spoilers for the first 30 minutes of the movie, but Joseph Quinn was fine, and this is really my first like big exposure to him as an actor. But I really wish that they would have stuck with the wolf guy from the beginning of the movie. There's a clear
Yeah.
relationship dynamic with him and Lupita, and he's very interesting, and he's a great actor, and they just really dispose of him quickly.
Well, yeah, I will say I called it only because I was like, oh no, a very recognizable face that I did not see on any promotional material. I was like, ah, shit.
Hmm. Yeah, I
And then
didn't even
was
know he was
character.
in the movie.
Yeah, no idea. When I saw him, I was like, oh, that's nice. And then immediately was like, oh, no, not nice. I was like, he's not making it very long.
Yeah, I give this movie like a 3 out of 5. I also had an awful experience because, you have the teens in the back. It's PG-13, so you got the teens in the back giggling because it's so fucking funny. And then
Yeah.
I had a couple. I'm anti blankets in theaters. I think if you bring a blanket in a theater and you're not a child, I mean, I don't know. I'm in Florida, so for me, it's
No,
like,
yeah.
why would you ever need that? But
I thought
yeah,
you
I
were
just
about to
think.
tell me a different story. That's why I was like,
Oh, no,
that's
but
why I was
yeah,
like, oh no.
well, they were like talking out loud to each other. They had brought food from like McDonald's. They were on their phone and like I don't know. So that movie's just an awful movie to watch like with the theater of people. And so if it's not even that good, like I think I said what was it? The director Jeff Nichols, the guy who made Bike Riders, he was supposed to do. I might be making his name wrong, but he was
I think
supposed to
that's
do
right.
A Quiet Place Day One, but he said no because at the end of the day, it's going to be John Krasinski's movie, and I just think what an epic fail of a summer for Mr. Krasinski, because I didn't
Yeah.
like If either.
Yeah, my niece liked If, but unfortunately, I really didn't enjoy it very much. I have a video on my phone that I haven't put out yet for it though, but
Mhm. The
yeah, it's
target demographic liked it, but I didn't,
yeah, it's whatever. But
but
yeah, Quiet
three,
Place is fine. It's
3 out of
nothing to run
5.
out. Exactly. It's like a middle of the road. If you're a fan of Quiet Place stuff, I think the fans for the most part are enjoying it. I like the other movies, but yeah, this was completely unnecessary. The second two were good. I think that family not having them there was probably a big significant part to the fact of like I feel like that was a big part of why people were kind of loving the movie a little bit more too. Like you had the whole emotions of having a deaf character and everything like that. And we just don't have that much suspense here as much as we did. The stakes aren't as high, I guess I would say.
Well, and even the second one, I was like, "Oh, this is kind of more of the same. It ends the same way. It's
Hmm.
it's just the same fucking movie." And so I just think they should quit while they're. I mean, clearly don't quit while you're ahead. It made 100 million domestically, so great for them. Which, by the way, just a quick ass anticipation update here because that movie belongs to your boy. It has Rotten Tomatoes disagrees with us entirely. It's got an 87%. Well, not really, because if you give it a 3 out of 5, that's a positive rating. You know what I mean? So that adds towards the Rotten Tomato score being higher. So I guess they do agree with us. But 87% and with $100 million domestically at the box office before it was launched on Paramount Plus, only a month after it was released. So that gives me another 87 points. You have not seen Despicable Me 4 yet, but that obviously crushed at the box office domestically, but only a 55% from critics,
You want to just give
which,
your thoughts on that one right now too?
yeah, I thought it was fun. I would think the thing that I really appreciated the most is, do you like Pharrell?
Yeah.
I love Pharrell. You know what I mean? Like Anchorman, Step Brothers, Ricky Bobby. this isn't landing. Well, Will
No, I
Ferrell
got
is the
it.
villain
Yeah.
of the movie.
I did not know he was even
Um,
in it though. That's why I was confused at first. I was like, Pharrell, yeah, he's just a minion guy, I guess now.
yeah, no, he did the villain of the bad guy in the movie, but he sounds like his Zoolander character. So he's got this very like thick European
That's
accent going
fun.
on. Yeah, and it is fun, and there's some fun stuff. Like I think his villain is like my second favorite villain in the franchise, or third, because I love the villain in Minions, Sandra Bullock's character of fuck everyone's name. And then Vector is cool.
Yeah.
Scarlet. Wait, that's her name. Scarlet Overkill. I
Oh
just
yeah.
remember the minion going that's a damn good impression, by the way.
Pretty yeah, that's pretty damn good.
Scarlet. But yeah, I don't know. Pharrell Williams, the artist, did the song Double Life. Have you heard it yet?
I don't think so.
Oh, dude. So I'm at the theater every day. So I'm like, who will Groot be tonight? That's the question. And it's a bop. And I listen to it on my own free time because it's stuck in my head. And all of his movies, he has bops like Happy, Fun, 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 like Despicable Me. These are all like hit songs.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that. And it's just got the 80s hit pop songs that, everyone likes, so that's fun. And then the plot is stupid. Who cares? It doesn't matter. It's just, shenanigans. And then they've gone the Simpsons route. So none of the characters aging up, which is such a weird thing to say before this specific entry, because this specific entry has a very distinctive time element to it since the son, they have a baby, which it takes
Oh.
9 months to produce a baby. And this baby looks like it's like not freshly born, so clearly amount of time has gone by, but it's cute. There's fun shenanigans in the movie. I don't know, I recommend it. Go see with your niece, you'd have a wonderful time.
Oh yeah.
3 out of 5. It's better. My hot take is that I think it's better than Kung Fu Panda 4.
That's not a huge mark to really jump over for me, but
No, it's not. I mean, they're both 3 out of 5s, but like I think they have very distinct similarities. And I mean, I don't want to say a spoiler, but there's like a thing that Kung Fu Panda 4 does, being the fourth movie in a franchise, that I think, especially with the way they utilized it in the marketing, I think that, the fact that they handled certain aspects about the franchise that people love about the franchise so much and abused them and didn't use them to their fullest capacity. Whereas Despicable Me 4 does a similar thing, but didn't market it, didn't like sell it on like, oh, you got to see this movie because fucking Tai Lung is back. You know what I mean? But yeah, no, give me Despicable Me 4 over Kung Fu Panda 4. I don't think it'll get nominated. But yeah, 55% of Rotten Tomatoes, 3 out of 5 for me. I think it's my second favorite in the Despicable Me franchise. Nowhere close to the first one, but it's just barely ahead of like Despicable Me 2 and
well, say
Minions.
I like 1 and 2 quite a bit. So
Mhm.
I'm looking forward to watching this one because I don't dislike any of them really. Like the first Minions, not a huge fan of. I actually like the second one more than I like the first one of the Minion stuff, but
Mhm.
overall they're all fine. But did you have any
Mhm.
more about Rotten Tomatoes you wanted to add on? Sorry, I jumped
Yeah,
in there.
so just to finish up the scoring here. So I'll do yours first since it's a lot easier. You have Inside
Yeah.
Out 2, which the highest grossing animated movie of all time, behind The Lion King 2019 at this point.
Damn.
That made 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. We'll talk about that next. And then you have Twisters that is currently sitting at 90 million domestically. So that will definitely make 100 million, but with it's sitting at 76%. So you are currently now at 91%. Me, on the other hand, blew my load completely early. Dune 2 at 92, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes at 80, Despicable Me 4, 55, Kung Fu Panda 4, 72, Quiet Place Day 1, 87, and I'm totaling out at 386. So I only have like 3, 4 movies left, and one of them's not even coming out. Whereas you have like
Six
your
or
whole
seven?
slate. You have Deadpool 3. Like that's
Yeah.
that's like this week.
Yeah, my score will definitely change with that one. I wouldn't be surprised because I mean, I don't know how much you can say. You've already seen it at this point. You think my score, without saying too much, you think my score will go up significantly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Well, the score is out.
Yeah, I
Um,
think I saw it recently.
and I think the score is pretty appropriate. I didn't like it as much as I liked the first. I think they get worse every time. Like I think Deadpool 2 is
Naturally.
very close, but I did give Deadpool 3 a 4 out of 5 with a heart. So clearly I'm not like, blindly like, oh, because I had a great time. It's wonderful. They did the exact one thing I wanted them to do, which I'll tell you later.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's funny. I just don't. I think the ending of the second movie, while it like they do a good job. Like oh we'll do the TVA thing, and oh there's different multiverse. We gotta get different Wolverine and everything. I think that doesn't bode well for Wade's internal conflict. Like none of that landed for me at all. The internal conflict for Logan Wolverine didn't work for me at all. So just whereas I feel like the first two movies really surprisingly work on a deeply emotional level for me, I didn't think this third one did very much. And the third one really relies heavily on like, oh my god, can you believe so and so's back? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I saw something and I took it as like not as much of a spoiler or anything like that, but someone was like, it took a minute for the movie to get going, but then when it gets going, it gets to be a lot of fun. It's basically what I saw.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's not Deadpool 3. I that's one thing I got to realize is that it's like, they're not as focused on developing his character because you're doing a duo movie, a buddy movie. I think it should be called Deadpool versus Wolverine just because it would be easily the best versus movie I've like ever seen in my life. I feel like there was one recently that was like really, really awesome that I'm forgetting.
Freddy versus
Um,
Jason, 2004, maybe 2004,
not
somewhere around
aged
there.
well.
2003. Oh yeah, no.
Damn, there is a good versus movie that like recently, like last couple of years came out, but regardless, I think it's really fun and I think people are gonna really like it. I think it's gonna make a lot of money. And but this is what I said in my letterbox, and this is my like thesis statement. Where it's kind of like Guardians 3, where it feels more like a eulogy than it does a jump start for something new. You know what I'm saying?
I do. So, this is a question I have too, real quick. People were worried when the whole sale of Fox happened with Disney doing an R-rated superhero movie. Do you think they handled it well with all, I mean, they hired a lot of the same Deadpool people, I assume, to write and produce a lot of it, I would assume, but
Well, it's frustrating because Disney gets credit for making it R-rated when they shouldn't, because it should be R-rated just to begin with. Like
yeah.
them being like, let's float out a story where we're flirting with putting it at a PG-13 movie, and then we'll announce it's R, and everyone will be like, yeah, Disney.
Well, and like
And
I remember that time because they also re-released Deadpool 2, but they re-released it as Once Upon a Deadpool and they recorded all that stuff with Fred Savage or whatever.
mhm.
And they did that whole thing with like the Princess Bride, which I went and watched, and it wasn't bad by any means. I thought the little inner cuts were fun, but you could definitely tell the moments that I remembered because I'd already seen. I think I literally saw Deadpool 2 with that added on 3 times in theaters. So like I knew that movie very well, and I knew the
Mhm.
moments that were gone. And while it didn't take away from the main story, you could definitely just feel like it didn't feel like a full-on Deadpool story. So I feel like, and they knew that once they released it like that, because I had to imagine that was probably a lot of people's takeaway from it was like, it's fine, but it just feels like a dulled down version of the thing that I really liked. So, I mean, putting handcuffs on something like a Deadpool thing would just be horrible for everyone involved.
I would say that no, there's no real discernible difference between like, the vulgarity and the crudeness of this Deadpool entry compared to the previous two. I mean, it does feel like they're a little less I don't know. Part of me is like, I think the shtick is like wearing a little bit thin over time because there's a very vocal minority that like really does not like Deadpool out there, and I was kind of surprised by that because I was like, well, the first one was such a like euphoric, like, can you believe that we got this, And this movie, I feel like it kind of suffers for me personally from the like, fan servicey type stuff because it's like you like this, right? We give you exactly what you wanted. This is what you wanted it to be yellow and blue of like this. You wanted the suit to look like that. Well, we did it. We did it. Does it look good? Be happy with us, please. Like save the MCU. And it's like it kind of has like a little bit more desperation than I would like. But like I said, it's very, very fun. It's very, very funny. It's just I didn't care for the villains, and I don't care for the internal, like the character arcs for our two leads. Those are two things that I feel like they dropped the ball on.
Gotcha.
But yeah, going to another movie I wanted to talk about was Inside Out 2. This is currently the biggest movie of the year. It's breaking a lot of box office records, which I think is really awesome because, I'm pro theater and I think that's great. And, people are going out to theater and it's a good movie. Like I have it at a 4 out of 5 and I really enjoyed it. But I think it's overrated and, I don't like it as much as the first. And I think that there's probably almost close to 20, at least 15 Pixar movies that I like more than this. So it's kind of middling to me. How did you feel?
You know, I enjoyed it. I wouldn't say it's near the top of Pixar by any means, but I liked the anxiety aspects of it and everything, the different emotions. I think that's fun and like I watched it through I didn't have my niece there with me because right after I actually watched the Midsummer Director's Cut in IMAX, but right before that came out, they had a showing of Inside Out 2 in the same exact room, so I decided to watch it, but seeing it through that lens and like thinking about it of like a kid growing up and watching that eventually, I liked it from that aspect, the same of like when I watched Turning Red, or like there are movies that like things that might be a little bit confusing or whatnot that during puberty and stuff. I think that is a really cool, they did a really cool way of showing like how anxiety and stuff kind of can like take over your life if you don't handle it properly or you don't go about it. And I thought that was pretty fun. But yeah, it's not like breaking any barriers. The animation was still beautiful because it's Pixar, but yeah, it wasn't like a top like 5 or even 10 or anything. It's very like mid-level Pixar, but mid-level Pixar is still a 4 out of 5 for me. I think is what I put it at. Really enjoyed it. Like the new additional cast. Like I said, anxiety was fun. Someone who takes anxiety. What did I write in my letterbox review? I think I wrote something about it. Let me see. I just had to make a joke because I'm on anxiety medication. So I was like, I don't have to worry. Oh, I was like, luckily anxiety won't take over my brain now, thanks to my Lexapro prescription. So like, yeah, someone who's had that in the past and can almost relate to it on that aspect, I really like those parts. But overall, yeah, it's middle of the road for sure.
There's a couple things I wanted to address that you brought up. First of all, anxiety. I think she's one of the best Pixar villains that we've had in a long time. Can
Yeah.
you remember the last time we had a Pixar villain that was this effective and interesting and full of personality?
Only the mom from Turning Red.
Which even then, that's like, yeah, I guess we get to the difference between what's a villain and what's an antagonist. But like, I don't know, I wouldn't say anxiety is necessarily a villain either. But yeah, the Mom and Turning Red is very, very good. I'm a big Turning Red guy. You brought up how they handled puberty and how like it's interesting that like first of all, the first movie came out like 9 years ago, so it's interesting to see super young kids going and seeing this movie. I mean, I guess you don't need to know too much about the original, but I'm happy that they addressed it the way they did. Like, I love that it all takes place at hockey camp. That was a big thing for me because I don't need to see a feature length version of Riley's first date. You
No.
know what I mean? That little Pixar short. Like
Yeah.
I've seen Big Mouth. With like my sister was like, "Oh, I want a PG-13 version of this," and I'm like, "Well, then go watch Big Mouth." Okay, this is not
Yeah.
what this is for.
Yeah. I don't need Riley smoking weed or doing anything crazy like that. I was like, I don't need any
Mhm,
more actually. Like, these are good. I don't think it
mhm,
was bad, but if they keep going and they try to add more, I think it could almost be derivative in a way and kind of take away from like the magic of it. Like if you go
mhm,
too weird and you try to go too hard with it, I feel like it would just get messy and out of hand. I think
mhm,
they picked a perfect ending point of the puberty stuff and kind of her balancing out her emotions and stuff. I think that was good.
mhm.
I
You
think
brought up
going
Riley.
go
Sorry.
no, you go ahead.
You brought up Riley. I had this take after I saw the movie, and I want to see what you think about this. I care more about Riley than I care about Andy.
Absolutely. We get to know more about Riley just from being with all of her emotions and everything and seeing her memories and whatnot. Andy
Mm,
is kind of just a placeholder to kind of make the Toy Story story make sense.
Which, like, yeah, they're trying to do two different things. It's not like they're, these are like an equal playing field. But I think that's just a compliment because I love
Oh yeah.
Andy. You know
No,
what I
yeah.
mean? I care about Andy so much. I was Andy, man. And so Riley, I think there's just like distinct things about her personality. At the screening I went to, there was a bunch of girls wearing Solar Bear jerseys. That's the
Oh,
local hockey team.
yeah.
And it took me the entire movie to realize why they were wearing Solar Bear stuff. Like I was super confused because I'm dumb. But yeah, I don't know. You talk about being derivative. One thing I do appreciate about this is I don't feel like we just repeated Joy's character arc from the first movie. A
Mm.
lot's inverted. Instead of going on a mission with Sadness, she goes on a mission with everyone else. Instead of like, her not being able to accept another emotion, like she's not the best at that, but she's working on it. But what it like that's the problem I had with Finding Dory, where Marlin just slips into his back, same old Marlin shtick of being a helicopter parent.
Yeah.
And then, same thing with like Bob Parr and Incredibles 2 and stuff like that. Like Lightning McQueen and Cars 2. Like I feel like we're just doing the same stuff. And here, I feel like it was a little bit more complicated. And I like how complicated it was. There's nothing that hits as emotionally hard as Bing Bong. But, my sister, when I took her to the press screen, is the first time I've taken her to one, which was really fun. But she was really affected by the movie because she did competitive dance for a lot of her life, so she connected, it's about a girl, she connected with it on a lot deeper of a level than I did personally. But I think it's really good. 4 out of 5. It's fun, it's funny, it's a good time, the animation's good, the new characters are fun. 4 out of 5. I think the reason I'm so negative about the film is, here's my hot take. When it wins best animated feature, and I mean when, it's going to be the worst best animated feature winner since Brave, or like maybe Big Hero 6.
Hey, I like Big Hero 6.
Well, I do too. 4 out of 5. Like that's what I'm saying. Like they
I got you.
like it's like the least good, like so it's just sad when it's like, oh, it would literally be in the history of best animated feature winners. It's probably in the bottom 5. And that's just such a lame, and it's just so lame to be like, oh, well, the year's over. Because it not only did it make the most money in the world, not only does it have the Disney name brand recognition, which we've had a couple years of a streak of the Disney award not going to Disney. We had Pinocchio, we had Spider-Verse 2, which definitely won the Oscar, right? Right. And then well, Boy and the Heron is great too,
I
but
still haven't watched it.
great movie. Oh, you have it.
I
You
just
you
bought
just
it,
got it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Dude, get on it. Come on. It's wonderful. You still haven't seen Interstellar yet.
Mm-mm.
Well, that's coming out
No,
in IMAX.
yeah, I about to say I've almost watched it, but I always want to be like, oh, I'm gonna watch it on my 4K TV rather than on my tablet or whatever, and just never have. But especially if
Mhm.
they're gonna release an IMAX, I might as well wait at this point, you know?
Yeah, because I think it's only like 2 more months. But yeah, that's kind of my thing with this movie is it's like, oh, it's kind of like Dune Part 2. It's like, oh, so the year is over. There's no point in like, oh, what's gonna be the best? What's gonna be the big winner? Because we know Inside Out 2 is gonna win. It's gonna be the first Disney thing to win Best Animated Feature since Encanto, which 3 years, but hey, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it was a good run.
so yeah, I just think it's a mild, pick. It's not really inspiring. Whereas like last year we had two Goliaths go up against each other.
Yep. Well, let's jump into another sequel that, at
Hmm.
least on my end, and I'm guessing on your end, didn't deliver as highly as I would have hoped for, and that is Maxine.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that going in?
So that was like a weird day. That was the day I was like deciding to get the car, I think. So like a lot of stuff was going on. I was like my head was in different places. But I liked it a lot. I think, okay, this is like a dude thing to say. So like X is like like a sex horror movie, right? They're making a porno and it's like a lot of nudity in the movie and it's very sex oriented. So I think it's like really weird in this movie, like specifically like the casting scene, and they ask her to like strip and she does, and they don't show it, and it's like we've seen that before. Like why? This is like a
So
80s slasher. Like I don't. This isn't like this killed the movie for me, but it was just
no.
like, isn't this a sex horror trilogy?
So the only thing that did so in my review on Letterboxd, one of my lines in it literally says Ty West loves horror movies or loves movies, and so do I. So the fun part about each one of these movies, I don't know how in tune you are, especially with like Italian horror movies, but
Mhm.
that is what this one kind of was like imaging in a way. The 80s giallo is what the kind of genre is called, which giallo in Italian I think literally means like yellow book or whatever, or something like that. And that's what they were. They were like murder mysteries that were produced in these yellow like books at like supermarkets and stuff. And then
Mhm.
eventually they became movies in Italy. And they're very much like the black gloved killer that you don't, and they have a mask on, and you never see their face until the very end of the movie, and
Mhm.
like all the different really close up cut in shots of like getting people's reactions right on their face and shit. Like that's so like the first one was very much like the grindhouse slasher of like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre in a way. And then the other one, they didn't even necessarily do horror as much with Pearl. They kind of took their inspiration from like the early stages of Hollywood Technicolor Wizard of Oz type stuff, and then injected horror into that type of genre. And then with
Mhm.
this one, he basically decided to make a crime thriller giallo movie that was very popular in Italy in like the 80s, basically, is how I've looked at this movie. So like it wasn't the movie I was expecting going into it, but knowing my own little bit of film history and stuff made me respect the movie more than I would have if I was just purely a fan of X and Pearl, I think.
No, I didn't know that, and that's that's good insight on the film. I like Pearl the most. I think I like Maxine more than I like X. I'm just so like enamored by this character that Mia Goth has created, and just her pursuit to be a star. I think her performance is really great. A lot of people said that the twist was like really easily like callable, like they could see it coming very easily. I didn't, and I didn't
Yeah,
really think it was that impactful. I to go in line with my like silly like like things that I didn't like about it. My favorite poster of the year is for Maxine, and it's the one of her with the backless dress, but it has like an X on her back, and then she's wearing the pearls, and she's kind of like doing a, you know what I mean, one of those.
like a pinup
Um,
girl, yeah.
yeah, so that scene is from when she's on the red carpet at the end of the movie, right?
Yeah.
And in that scene, she's not wearing the pearls, and that upset me an abnormal amount. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, because that's like one of the cutest things about it is like kind of tying it all together. Like, I don't know, it's so ambitious and it's so easy to appreciate this trilogy, and this one's so like pro cinema. But and then I feel like the ending kind of dragged on. Like I could have ended when with the helicopter. I could have ended on the red carpet. Should have ended on the red carpet. And then we're on set. And I'm like, can we like wrap this up kind of a thing? Like end big, right?
Yeah, I had one buddy that really complained about the just the shootout in general moment too, and I was like, the movie at the same time though, that also happens a lot in giallo movies too. So like, there's just a lot of it that like I don't know. I It took me a while because when I first went in, I was expecting more of a horror movie, and while it's still present, it's definitely not at the forefront of your mind while watching it, at least for me. Like it was
Mhm.
very much a very like a crime thriller who done it, which stays in line, like I said, with Giallo, but it just wasn't what I was expecting from the first two movies. But I think watching them as like a trilogy later, like when they're all released and I can watch them in like a day, I think I'll
Mhm.
even find more respect for Maxine. But yeah, I think my rating right now, Pearl is one of my favorite horror movies in the last 5 years for sure. Just of how stylistic it is and just unique, and especially Mia Goth's performance. Like between these three movies and then even going outside of that to like what was that movie that came out where she was in it when she was like the fucking
Infinity Pool.
infinity pool. Holy shit.
James.
Yeah, I still
James.
hear that in my head sometimes. So just like between all of those movies together, and then a few other things I've seen her in, like Nymphomaniac. I don't know if you've ever seen those two movies. They're
No,
Lars,
Cure for
they're Lars
Wellness.
von
Haven't seen
Trier
any either.
movies. Well, Nymphomaniac, it's like volume one and volume two, and it's literally about a lady who's like obsessed with sex. And Mia
Same.
Goth is in it when she was like a a little bit younger. I think it came out in like 2012, 2013. Like Shia LaBeouf and a bunch of other people are in it, but
Mm,
it is insane. But yeah, from her career trajectory, it's just been insane. And I honestly feel like if she wasn't in horror, she'd probably be talked about a lot more in like award consideration, mainstream Hollywood more. But
mm.
I feel like as she breaks out more and more, she's gonna get more attention because yeah, she was great in this one. She plays the character of Maxine perfectly. And yeah, I hope Ty West does more cool shit just when it comes to just making very different movies, but still staying in his horror roots.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm a decent fan of it. It's in my top 10 list. It's towards the bottom, but it's in there and I like it. And I give Pearl a 5, this one a 4, and then X a 3. I think I can go up on X over time, but yeah, it's hard not to just stand back and be in awe of the ambition of Ty West. And I'll really be excited to see what he does next after this, especially and Mia Goth as well. I mean, this is a big phenomenon. And I think another big problem with this movie is it came out so long after X and Pearl. Like I get it, you can't release 3 movies in a year, but the fact that like X and Pearl both came out in what was it, 2022?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we had to wait 2 years for the next one, and then everyone had the time to build that up, and there was so much hype around this movie.
Mhm.
So I think that was to its detriment.
Yeah, and I think like a similar thing with like it didn't really dominate at the box office, and I think similar conversations like we had with Mad Max where it didn't really make as much money. It came out so long after Fury Road that I think the steam kind of let out a little bit and people kind of lost the hype train.
Yeah, but it's good. It's good. I'm like clearly I'm not like bouncing off the walls about it.
No,
I've been obsessed with Saint Elmo's Fire recently. So when they referenced Saint Elmo's Fire, I was like, yeah. But
I still need to
yeah.
watch it.
Hulu, Amazon. It's on both. I love it so much. But yeah, no, I thought it was good. I thought it was really good. I'm generally pretty positive about it. I'm sure I would like it less if I watched it again, though.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how it goes on a rewatch, but I think I would probably just to like try to really pinpoint because I feel like Ty West probably hid things around from like different references to whether it's X or Pearl and stuff that I might not have caught on to. So I'd be curious from that aspect. But another movie that I actually saw that same day, but beforehand, was Yargos' new movie, Kinds
Yes.
of Kindness. Now,
Yes.
I'm a huge fan of his. This is now the third movie I've seen of his, actually even in theaters too, because I got on the favorite hype train when I was
Mhm,
living in Florida. Got to see that, loved that one. I
mhm,
mean, I even watched The Lobster when it was brand new, and that shit was fucking unique as hell. Like,
mhm.
and then last year, Poor Things is my favorite movie of 2023. And Kinds of Kindness is pretty high up there right now, too. I didn't know what to expect going into it. And I feel like me and you are probably alone on this almost, but this movie was so much fun and just weirdness, but so much Yargos. And like, I didn't even know it was like an anthology or anything going into it until literally the first set of credits started rolling. And I was like, okay. I was like, I'm just rolling with it.
Mhm,
But yeah, the dark comedy in there, especially I think the last one might have been my favorite of the three.
mhm.
But oh my God, so hilarious. A great cast. I mean, a lot of the same people, obviously, from Poor Things, but a few other people. And
Mhm.
I just think this was just so much fun. And it felt like while they were making Poor Things, this felt like they were probably making it on the side almost of like off days. And they were like, let's go shoot this stupid thing that we're just going to do for fun. But then it turned out to be something very unique and magical. So, what are you thinking?
I think there's two of the funniest jokes of the year, and I've seen Deadpool and Wolverine now, and I still think two of the funniest jokes of the year are from Kinds of Kindness. They're both a little spoilery, but I feel like everyone who wants to see it by now has seen it.
Yeah.
So for me, you brought up which bit was your favorite. I think
Oh,
I don't know. The second one might be or the third. I kind of think it's the
I was
third.
about to say the third with the ending punchline. Like, you know what I'm talking about.
That's one of my favorite jokes, though, with the sandwich.
Well, yeah, and just the like the whole thing of like at the very end of her picking her up and then just like they
Oh,
kind of
that
hint
too. That was very
yeah,
funny.
I literally when that moment happened, my theater was empty. I was the only one in there. I like stood up and was fucking laughing because I was like they were hinting towards it the whole time, but like you weren't thinking about it. And then once she literally like right before it happened, I was like, no fucking way, like to myself. I was like, that's how we're gonna end it, and I was so happy.
Well, I watched it in a pretty full theater and no one was laughing the entire time, which made me really uncomfortable because I thought it was really funny.
Oh yeah.
And so, yeah, when because they did the title bit, like of each one. So once they did the he eats a sandwich, I was like, there's no way.
Oh
And
yeah.
so we were already like walking down the stairs and they cut to that and most people had left. And I just cracked up because, I just thought it was the funniest like payoff to that setup. But the funniest joke I think of the year for me, and this really as a dog owner, this really hurts to say, but I laughed embarrassingly loud. And I mean like I laughed so loud I had to like cover my mouth and like I was like, oh no, I can't believe I'm the guy that like laughs so hard at the dog hanging itself in the montage.
Oh, yes.
Because it's
Holy
like happy stuff.
shit.
Like they're like driving
Yeah.
a car, they're on the beach, and then you just see a dog like hanging on a noose. And I laugh so fucking hard. Well, because it's ridiculous, that can't ever
Hmm.
happen. But like that's so dark and so twisted, but so funny. And I just wonderful, wonderful joke.
Oh yeah. Yargos, dude, he just has that sense of humor where like some of the jokes might not be in your face, like you don't hear it right away, but once you think about it for a minute, there's some of the funniest shit you've ever heard. Like he's very like I would almost say he's like a raunchier Wes Anderson in a way. Because like he does stuff so uniquely, but always and the delivery is so dry from his actors on purpose sometimes. But
Hmm.
like the ridiculousness of what they're saying is just so funny and it's what makes it great. But
Hmm.
yeah, I loved the fact of like especially the title of it being called Kinds of Kindness, but I mean, not really a spoiler, but the movie is literally about how
Horrible things.
manipulation and power can be almost like disguised as a kind of kindness in a way, and all of these different like forms of just abuse and manipulation and whatnot are disguised like that, and just like power and whatnot, and just it had like if you really want to dig into it, there's a lot that it's saying, but if you don't, it's still just a fucking ridiculous fun movie.
I love your take, your interpretation of the title. I love doing stuff like that and asking like, "Oh, why is it called this?" Yeah, I think it leaves a lot of food for thought as well as being like a really funny movie. I do think it's way too long. That's a
Yeah.
difficult part about it.
Well, my
But it looks
favorite,
awesome, and then like the colors, like what do all the different colors mean?
well, and Yargos basically said the only reason that what's the guy's name? The guy that has the sandwich?
Lemons. Oh no, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
But he basically just said he's like the only reason that character exists is just to have a continuation through my three stories. He's like, really, that's the only reason. He's to have continuity to connect them.
Yeah, I don't even know what his deal is. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even remember anything about him just besides the ate the sandwich. Finally,
Hmm.
thank God. But yeah, I think I really love the reception that this movie's gotten because I think Poor Things was overexposed. I think it was great. I give 5 out of 5. I think it's the best lead actress performance since I can't think of one.
Yeah, no.
I like Kate Blanchett and Blue Jasmine more, but still, we're talking about like a decade prior, and so he got a lot of like widespread notoriety. So for him to dive into his more dark, twisted
I
self.
is literally like one of the most funniest troll moments like ever. Because like he really because he got such wide known notoriety for that movie and like even like mainstream comedy fans will probably heard Yargos's name or kind of got familiar with it from that. So to go into something so extremely Yargos after that is
Mm,
just hilarious. Because like
mm.
you could see it on Letterboxd too. Like I don't know if you peruse other people's reviews that you don't follow, but like there are
Sometimes.
some people that are just like, "What was this? This is not like Poor Things." Blah blah blah. And it's like, yeah, yeah, it's not.
Good, good. Yeah, I'm happy he has variants. I'm happy he's, able to do different
It very
things.
much is in a similar light to like The Favorite and The Lobster, where like especially The Lobster. Because like I don't know if you've seen that one, but it is very
I've seen all, but
bizarre.
it made me want to rewatch those two because those two I'm very lukewarm on.
Yeah.
And
So out of his movies, the only one I still haven't seen is Killing of a Sacred Deer, I
Dogtooth.
think. A
Oh,
Dogtooth too, but especially like the mainstream of them, Killing of a Sacred Deer. Haven't
I
seen
did
that
that
one
one
yet.
recently. It's good. It's Barry Cogan and Colin
Yeah,
Farrell, both very good in it.
I love Colin Farrell. That's the reason I really want to see it the most. But I like Barry as well.
Hmm. Yeah, it makes me want to rewatch those other two, and I want to see Dogtooth as well. And I'll be really interested to see because Yorgos can basically do whatever he wants next, really, because there are people are going to forget about this, and all people are
Oh
going to
yeah.
think about is Poor Things.
Fox Searchlight is printing him checks no matter what. I mean, I don't even think The Favorite or like any of those other ones were that big at the box office, but
Mhm.
they have enough notoriety where they get awards and everything and it gets eyes on the studio. So they're going to keep handing him checks regardless. But I don't want him to ever like try to jump into a franchise or anything. I just want Yargos to make Yargos.
Never. Can you imagine him doing Ant-Man 4? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that would just be sad. Yeah, I don't want him to be handcuffed by studios and whatnot. Like, I feel like Fox Searchlight is very much just like, here's your money, go do what you do, man. And it just seems like
Mhm.
the most fun to be anyway, like as an artist, to have that much freedom to just do the weirdest shit and just be like, my people will like this. I think that's the
Mhm.
dream for a lot of people.
Yeah, I really liked it. I 4 out of 5. I really had a good time with it. Lauren hated it. She was like upset afterwards.
Yeah,
But I don't know. I like when movies can make you feel things, and this is one I just would love to show my parents. You know what I mean?
yeah. That would be a fun experience.
Mhm. Another one that I wanted to bring up is it's appropriate that I bring it up. So M. Night not only produces films, but he also produces filmmakers, and this is Shauna Night Shyamalan, her directorial debut, feature debut. She did some of the shows, The Watchers, which is based off of a novel. How did you feel about this film?
So, very interesting experience with this one because did not jump on it right away, missed the theatrical run, but finally got around to it very recently. And the first, I want to say almost half of it, I wasn't sure if I was going to even like it. Like, I was like iffy on it. And then once it starts unfolding into what it is more, because I truly had no idea what it was about. I knew that, like, what is it, Dakota Fanning? I knew she was in it, and that was it. Like that was, and I think the girl from Barbarian. That's the only thing I knew about it.
Yeah.
But after the shit starts unfolding more and more, and like especially not really a spoiler, but the camcorder part and everything like that. Like once horror things start really getting into it, that's when I started to really buy in. And then it quite literally goes off the fucking rails, and it's either you ride that ride or you will hate it, similar to a lot of her father's movies. But I rode the fuck out of that ride and I had a very fun time with it. Is it ridiculous? Absolutely. The whole shit, especially just with the lore that I feel like is present. I'm interested to read the book now. That's what I find myself with a lot of Shyamalan things, like Knock at the Cabin and whatnot. I still haven't read the book, but all these adaptations really push me towards just like wanting to compare them because I know that there's probably stuff they couldn't put into the movie, but just the uniqueness of I don't really want to spoil it because I want people to watch this just to get the I don't know just
Mhm.
because it's very much in line with like her father where it turns at one moment like I said, and if you don't like it you're probably gonna hate it by the end.
It's funny you bring up the Knock at the Cabin book specifically, the Cabin at the End of the World. I bought that book for Lauren to read because she likes to read, and she said it was like massively inferior to the movie in a lot of ways. And that's how I feel. I feel like the weakest part about this movie, The Watchers, is the source material. I just don't feel like there is much there. Like what I
Yeah.
like about the movie is the vibe that she creates. And she definitely it feels like an M Night light type movie, and then just seeing like noticing like the ways that they format things, like telling a story, but also like intermittently cutting back to like the backstory of our main character. And it's the same as like M Night's movies, in that like it's marketed as this like scary horror movie, but it's like no, it's at most a thriller. But it's mostly just this drama about this girl trying to overcome her like trauma and past and
Yeah,
move on.
quite literally, the one movie I would compare it to the most is The Village. Because like,
Yeah.
and that's what it was kind of sold as, is like, oh, this is gonna be like creepy and weird, and then it just was a whole different thing. But did I dislike it because of that? No. In fact, I almost respected it more because of that in the end. Watching it
Mhm.
at first, I was like, fuck you, this movie's boring as hell. I'm over this. Like I was saying, first like half hour, I was like, they're just standing in a room and something's watching them, but I don't fucking know what it is. As far as I'm
Hmm.
concerned, there's nothing there. As like, 'cause that's the twist, I'm gonna fucking freak out. Like that's how I kind of was acting at first. And then
Hmm.
once it unfolds more and more, and we learn more about it, and then like quite literally, like I keep talking about the ending, the last like half hour of this movie, if you could have actually expected what was going to happen without knowing any source material or anything and just guessed it randomly, I'd give you everything on my bank account because there's no fucking way. It's
Hmm.
just there's no I can't even remember every detail at the moment, but I just know like being baffled by it to the point where I was like, I was thinking 2 stars beforehand, and I forget what I did by the end, but I definitely went like three and a
Three and a
half, I
half.
want to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would maybe even bump it to a 4 eventually, just because I respected where it went. Like actually, so my brother went and saw it before I went and saw it, and his girlfriend, they literally went to the movie theater because she wanted to see a horror movie. And I told them, I was like, I don't know if this is gonna be a horror movie. I was like, because it's M. Night's daughter, I was like, I told them, I was like, if you really want to go see a horror movie, go watch that one, the slasher one where it was like the killer's point of view in Good Nature or
Oh,
whatever it's called.
and a violent nature.
In Violent Nature. Yeah, I told him to go watch In a Violent Nature instead of that. And he was like, no, Hannah wants to go watch that one, so we'll go watch it. And she ended up liking Watchers, and he did not. Because he was
Hmm.
expecting a horror and didn't get it and whatnot. And he said it just got way too crazy for me at the end. And I was like, no, that's why I enjoyed it.
Well, that's the thing. I feel like the target demographic, I think it's definitely a female targeted movie.
Yeah.
The main character's a girl. It's kind of reminds me of like, I don't know, the M Night movie I would compare it to the most without like saying anything spoilery is Lady in the Water. It's
Oh,
very
yeah.
fantastical. Like
I
when
know.
it's very famous that like, M Night read the story like Lady in the Water to them as kids growing up, and I was like, oh
That
yeah,
is
she definitely was raised on that.
between that and Paul Giamatti being in it, the only things I really know about it. And like Ginger Girl's in it too.
Yeah, the Ron Howard's daughter.
That's
Uh,
exactly it.
but I'm such a hater. The first thing that came to my head was, oh, Bryce Dallas
Bryce.
Howard, and I was
Yeah.
like, no, Ron Howard's daughter, because I'm not a fan of her very much. But yeah, I think another thing that I was a little disappointed with the Watchers as a big Shyamalan fan, is M Night's biggest strength, arguably, is the his ability to take Action Man and make him into this like awesome, like insecure dad like, performance. Mel Gibson's best performance is Signs. Bruce Willis goes back to back in two of his best performances of his career. Sam Jackson's awesome and Unbreakable. That's what I loved about that's what doesn't work about The Happening, is that they try to do that with Mark Wahlberg, and Mark Wahlberg unfortunately is nowhere near as versatile of an actor as a Mel Gibson or a Bruce Willis. So I think that's really where that movie fails.
A piece
So
of wood.
here,
A piece of wood would have been a better actor. Like it's just like a cardboard cutout.
well, I believe The Happening is Mark Wahlberg's best performance unintentionally.
Yes.
I think ironically it's absolutely hilarious. But yeah, it's either that or The Departed for me. But here, I
Ted.
don't think that Dakota Fanning did that great of a job, and I don't
No.
think Shauna did that great of a job directing her actors
No.
either.
I would say the older woman was the best.
Mhm.
The girl from Barbarian second best, and everyone else tied for last, honestly.
Yeah, it's just there's a lot that's uninspiring here. But I will say, at the end of the day, I think that it shows promise, and I would love to see what she does next, especially
She,
if it's an original script. Because I don't like when Shyamalans do adapted screenplays; they're
yeah,
usually their worst movies.
she did well capturing tension at certain moments, and like her cinematographer did a good job shooting everything, I'll
Yeah, it
say.
looks awesome.
Yeah, everything about it. I mean, even the effects and whatnot, the ones that we get are pretty damn good and everything. And like the setting is interesting once I finally understood it. It didn't wasn't
Mhm.
just a room in the middle of the woods. But
I hate to
yeah,
say, but it reminds me of like Maleficent.
never saw either of those.
Yeah, well, ugh, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but Sam,
Especially,
I don't think I'm ever missing much.
yeah, but yeah, no, like I said, I'm excited going forward. I'm giving it a very generous 4 out of 5 because I do like the arc of the main character, and I did really have a great time, like analyzing her filmmaking style, and just seeing where M Night's fingerprints are all over this bad boy. But yeah, no, someone asked me, they were like, "Oh man, does Watchers, like the quality of Watchers, impact your anticipation for Trap?" And I'm like, no, she, at the end of the day,
No,
she's not her father. And I trap. Dude, I'm so
Trap
fucking excited.
Trap is such a unique and cool concept alone that I'm just so excited. And I don't want to know anything more than what I saw in that first trailer that I saw. I'm sold. Like I'm not even a huge Josh Hartnett person in general, but I'm down for everything about this movie.
Oh yeah, and he, like that, like I said, he's great at taking action man, tough guy actor and making him this little insecure little dad with his little dad jokes.
Well, not only
And
that, he's plucking Josh Hartnett practically out of obscurity. Like Josh Hartnett has never really been the A-list guy that he wanted to be. Like one of the biggest movies, like when I think of Josh Hartnett, is Halloween H2O,
oh
which
my
came out
god.
in the year like 1998 or something like that, when he
Hmm.
was like in his early 20s, I think. So that's what I think about when I think of Josh Hartnett, and I'd like to change that. So I mean, he was in what was he? Was he in
Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer? Yeah, I was about to say that was one of his last things that really put him back into people's eye lens or eye line anyway. But I hope that this one really like puts it over the top because the concept alone has me sold.
Yeah, so excited. Can't wait. I did want to throw you a bone. The Bad Boys Ride or Die, I ended up catching pretty late, and I had a really good time with it. I was laughing a lot throughout. I think I still gave it a 3 out of 5 because I think narratively and character wise, I don't think it's that great. But I mean, the camera work is fucking phenomenal.
Dude, that is the biggest compliment for it is the camera. I mean, even like just for being creative, like putting the camera on like their gun and everything and having that weird POV, like did it
Mhm.
look the absolute best? Not all the time, but
I think it
it's
did. Like,
it's a perspective that we don't get very often, and it like amps up like your like I don't know, like it makes you feel like you're in the action. We're like, oh
like a video
shit.
game.
Yeah, exactly. That is one of the things. It's almost like Doom, where like it's literally like you're getting, and that's the one thing that they did fucked up with that Doom movie way back in the day. They only did one scene of it being like your POV, you're watching it. That's what the game was, and they never did that in that fucking movie. But with this one, they flipped it on his head, and you're literally looking at your guy like a third person almost. But it was so cool. But I also, similar to how I talked about with like the other movies earlier, this is a pure vibes movie for me because I've been watching these movies. Like the first one came out, I think a year before I was born, and the second one came out when I was like 6, and I got to watch it like right away when it came out. My dad rented it on like tape, and we watched it, and it
Mhm.
has been like one of my favorite action movies since I was a kid. So I have like a little bit of a bias when it comes to the Bad Boys franchise, but I put this one like Bad Boys 2 is my favorite of all of them. This one, it's definitely under 2, but I still had tons of fun watching it. I mean, there's nothing I can complain about it too much. The action was pretty good. Yeah, some of the characters weren't as great, and I mean, you can only do so much development with a fourth movie at this point without being too, you just have to either go crazy or do very little, which they kind of went with the latter and didn't do a whole lot, but
Mhm.
I think it was fun for what it was. Do I hope they make more? Not really. Will I still go if they make more? Yeah. Does the box
Mhm.
office make sense for them to do more? Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Like that was one thing that like shocked the hell out of me. But it was actually like I saw an article recently. They said black audiences are coming out for movies like this still for black comedies. And I mean, I can speak to it personally. The theater I was in, I think I was the only white person in there. Like
I was.
it was either black or Latino people that were coming to see it, and the theater was more full than a lot of the other movies. Like I talked about with like Kinds of Kindness, the only person in there, Maxine. I think there might have been 8 people in that theater, and that was like at a 6 o'clock showing or something. So unfortunately, people are coming to see stuff, but it might not be the stuff that you and I personally think should be the ones people are seeing, but animated movies and I guess black led
Mm,
comedies and stuff are the movies that are making the most money at the moment. So the studio should probably lean into that more. And I mean, honestly, if they made more that weren't necessarily Bad Boys 4 and did more original stories, I think a lot of people would still go out to that too. But at the end of the day, Bad Boys 4, not Bad Boys Forever, like they fucked up naming the last movie. It's a good movie and I enjoyed it. I think I gave it like a 4 out of 5. It's probably closer to a 3 out of 5 realistically, but I loved all of the shit. I mean, no spoilers, but the scene with Reggie, Martin Lawrence's steps or
mm,
son-in-law, that shit
mm,
was fucking hilarious. And I was like, for payoff, because that literally is the same actor that they introduced in Bad
yeah.
Boys 2 20 years ago. And the fact that he's still in there just doing shit and hanging out with them. I think that was just so much fun. And yeah, that's the biggest compliment I'll give this movie. Like, if you're a fan of the movies, you're gonna like these movies. If you're not as big on them, it's just another buddy cop movie.
I'm not a big fan of the Bad Boys franchise. I think this might be my personal favorite Bad Boys movie. Like it's the best experience I've had with one of them. I think Bad Boys 2 is probably the better movie.
Yeah.
But I looked it up because I wanted to get their names correct. Adil and Bilal, the directors of this film, they also did the last Bad Boys, which I really didn't like. And
Yeah.
then they did the Miss Marvel show, which I liked, but I didn't get a lot of their great camera work there. And I also didn't finish it. But here, like I heard rumors about them doing the next Spider-Man movie, and after watching this, I'm like, please do, because like narratively, I don't feel like there's much else place for them to go with Spider-Man. But camera work wise, because that's the thing. I think John Watts had very uninspired camera like work in these
Yeah.
films. So I just like to see someone who like that's their priority because that was so clear that like every action scene was like the most beautiful thing in Bad
Yeah.
Boys Ride or Die. So I
John
really appreciated that.
John Watts comes from a very like comedy, like not even studio, like indie comedy world where you don't have the budget to move the camera that much. So I don't think he was probably even thinking about it that much. These guys that did, I think they're just two Indian guys. I don't even know if they've really made anything other than the first Bad Boys and doing Miss Marvel stuff. But I know that, yeah, if they're doing Spider-Man and shit like that, I'm down for it. And I mean, Miss Marvel, I think that show is worth revisiting, in my opinion, just because that's one of the better Disney Plus shows, I think, as a whole. I really enjoyed that. Like, even if it wasn't a superhero show, it was still just a fun show in general. Like the story and like the family that Kamala has, I think is just the best part of it. And was honestly my favorite part of Captain Marvel too, or
Mm,
Miss Marvel, whatever you call it.
the Marvels, but
Yeah.
I it's funny because I did watch the first 3 episodes of Miss Marvel and I liked it. I stopped liking it once it became a superhero thing, and I didn't notice anything good about the camera work or the action whatsoever. So it's so interesting. Like I hated Bad Boys for Life. The things I like about Bad Boys Ride or Die, I didn't get with Miss Marvel, but I'm like so sold on these directors now. Like they're just doing stuff with the camera that no one else is doing. And I don't want to see another Bad Boys movie. I'm kind of done. But good for Will Smith getting a little dub, after the whole like, Oscar slap situation. Yeah, Reggie's hilarious. There's a lot of things I really, really liked about this movie. But yeah, so just flowers for Bad Boys.
Yep, I think it was the right career move, especially for Will Smith to get in everyone's good graces again too. Because Mike
Hmm.
Lowry is just a fun character to watch for a little while. He's very narcissistic but lovable.
Hmm. The last big one I feel like that we have left on the docket is Twisters. Speaking of, you talked about earlier Yorgos being the small indie director and going on to big studio projects. Lee Isaac Chung is doing a similar thing where he was going from Minari to making Twisters. How did you feel about the movie?
You know, I've seen the first Twister within the last like 5 years for the first time, honestly. Like I've seen clips of it, but never really watched it as a kid. And I really enjoyed that one. And this one, I really enjoyed it too. And I think it was a lot of it due to Glenn Powell being in my face a lot lately and just the charming bastard just has me sold. But is it Daisy Edgar Jones? Is that her name?
Correct.
I liked her in this one, especially out of a lot of the last few roles that she had. I think that Hulu movie that she did with Sebastian Stan was better, but better than Crawdad Sings.
Fresh. Or, yeah,
Yeah.
fresh.
Yeah. Fresh was I think she was a little bit better in that one, but I liked her a lot in this. And honestly, all the characters. I mean, we got the guy from Jordan Peele's last movie,
Hmm.
the camera guy, and we got a few different little cameos from different like people. Like actually, one of my favorite tiny little cameos is at the very end. The guy at the airport that
Paul
was like,
Scheer, yeah.
yeah, Paul Shear. I was so happy. I was like, what the fuck is Paul Shear doing a little cameo in Twisters for? But I feel like he must just be a huge fan of the first movie. But
Well,
yeah,
actually, I saw an interview. His mom is in the first movie, and she's currently pregnant in the movie. She is pregnant with him, so he
that
is in the first movie technically.
that is so fucking cool. I did not know that.
Well,
That is
I love
really.
that scene too because I hate people who have the job that his character has.
Oh
Like
yeah,
the people who like blow the whistle at people like trying to pick up people in the fucking airport. I hate those people. They're the worst people on the planet.
yeah. I
Not
know they're
really,
just
but they're
doing their
bad.
job, but I want to fucking kick them in the head. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not helping anybody. They're just like making noise. But yeah, I like the movie a lot. I saw it in 40X, and I think that there really should not be another way to watch this movie. I mean, it just lends itself so perfectly when they're going around the truck
Yeah.
and the rain, the wind, and I just think it's so perfect.
I
Uh,
mean, sorry to cut you off,
there you go,
but
you're good.
one thing I will say is that I saw it in just IMAX. I would say if you can see it in 40X, definitely do so. I think we actually just got a 40X theater for the first time in Michigan, and the first movie they're playing in it is Twisters. So
Mhm.
hopefully I can get over there to see it. I can't remember what city it's in, but if you can, I would highly recommend it. But still in IMAX, that just speaking to the filmmaking alone, all of that intensity still came across for me, whether it was the sound design or the digital effects of making the storms and everything. Like
Mhm.
the intensity of the actual storm chasing itself and them literally planting themselves in the middle of tornadoes and whatnot was fucking crazy. Like you could definitely feel the intensity just in the room in general, but especially like that first opening scene when you have a lot of recognizable faces that again, similar to how I talked about the wolf kid in the Quiet Place movie, I was like, ah fuck. I was like, I didn't know any of these people were in this movie, but I have a
Mhm.
feeling I know why. But
Mhm.
yeah, but it was really like just in general, it had me. I think from that opening, I think it got enough emotion in there where you got enough character build just from that alone where like you're like I'm riding or dying for this girl no matter what. She went through that horrible experience and blah blah blah. I think that really helped because there isn't a whole lot of story after that really other than we got to get this stud done to get this chase and whatnot, and we also got to save the people. That's basically what the movie is, and quite similar to that first Twister movie if I remember correctly, but still lots of fun.
Yeah, Clint Powell's on top of the world, and he's awesome in this movie. I think there's a specific scene where they like put this like really western like bum bada bum 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 bada bum 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 bada bum, and he's so good looking and he's so charming and charismatic, and he rides the line between douchey but also like this good guy. I love him so much. Daisy Edgar Jones I think does a good performance, but I don't think she fits the role. Like her as this blonde, by the way. Not good. Sorry, you are
Uh,
not a good blonde, Daisy Edgar Jones. Very beautiful woman, don't get me wrong, but didn't like the blonde. I also think that she didn't sell me on Midwestern girl who grew up like studying tornadoes. She also didn't sell me on New York City elite. Uh, you
no.
know, and then, so I think she was miscast. Honestly, I think Sydney Sweeney from Anyone But You. I think if they would have reteamed her up with Glenn Powell, I think that would have been more appropriate.
Well, the funniest part is like I feel like they tried to get away with saying she didn't have an accent because she was in New York, but like if someone grew up in Oklahoma, I've met people that grew up in Oklahoma and moved away from Oklahoma. They still fucking talk like they're from Oklahoma. It's just in their blood. So
Mhm.
like she could have tried a little bit more on the accents and stuff or get somebody to do an accent because that was one big glaring thing. Yeah. She did not
Mhm.
sound like she was from Oklahoma or anything like that. But
Mhm.
yeah, other than that, it is quite literally because you can kind of base it off the last movie being in the 90s, kind of like fun disaster movies. This kind of like is a revitalization a little bit of disaster movies that we get every now and then, but this one was done pretty well. Like my biggest complaint for the whole movie in general was the fucking country music soundtrack that they had. Like
See, I
the
liked
action
it.
well, the score itself, like you were talking about, like the boom, bada boom, boom, like the actual like westernish sound sounded good, but the country songs that were literally like the singing and everything, I couldn't fucking stand those ones. And I was like, if you took all of those out and put in literally almost any kind of music, I would enjoy it more. But every time I was just like, God fucking please get it over. And I think it's just a personal thing with me just hating country music these days. I like older country music.
Mhm. I the only things I think this movie did better is A, Glenn Powell, and B, the story. I didn't care for the divorce crap in the last one. But the last one has better special effects, has better supporting actors. I mean, I'm specifically thinking about Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. There's just so much more practical stuff in the original, and we just don't really get that here. And so I don't know. I think it's good. I think I'm really excited to see what Lee Isaac Chung does next because I think he did
Mhm.
a really great job. It's visually, it's very good.
I agree. Well, I'll
Mhm.
jump on one that you
Oh,
haven't
I was a
seen
4 out of
yet.
5, by the way. 4 out of 5.
Oh yeah, same, I think.
Hmm.
But one that you haven't seen yet, and I have. This
Hmm.
house would look familiar to someone that might. It looks a lot similar. I don't think it's the same by any means, but
Hmm.
so long legs. It's being hyped as like the scariest movie in the last 5 years and whatnot, which I don't particularly agree with. Let Granted, I am a very seasoned horror fan. I've seen a lot of crazy shit, but I will say if you're not, I can understand why you would think this is so frightening. That this is like the first horror movie you've seen in some time. Because Nicolas Cage, I mean, you've seen him in crazy shit, and you've seen him go acting batshit crazy. I mean, like that one movie that Lucas showed us years ago, the
Mom and
parents,
Dad.
yeah, the parents going crazy. Like
Hmm.
he almost goes that level of goofiness at times, but the way he goes about it, it's like if you watched it and wanted to laugh at it, you could. But if you really look at it from like this is a real person, it is terrifying. Because
Hmm.
like they do a bunch of makeup too, which I will give all the credit to Oz Perkins, son of Anthony Perkins from Psycho. Great film director so far. I can't wait to see what he does next. But what he did perfectly for this movie is everyone knew Nicolas Cage was in it, but you didn't see a damn frame of the character that he played, at least until after the movie was released. He did not use him in trailers other than his voice, I think, and he did not really show you what he looked like. But yeah, basically that. And I'll be damned, he is terrifying looking. Like it's unrecognizably him other than you hear his voice because he does like a high pitched voice, but he does the voice in like other movies and stuff that you hear him. You can like hear his you can he still obviously hear his tone of voice. Like you'll recognize him from anything, but
Hmm.
just his level of delivery and everything and like his body movements, like it is uncomfortable.
Hmm.
Like he plays a serial killer too well. Like you've seen Silence of the Lambs, right?
Of course.
So this is on the same level. Like it's been compared a lot to Silence of the Lambs, but I'd almost say it has a better style than Silence of the Lambs, like especially from a cinematography standpoint. But the story, how it kind of unfolds of like this FBI agent trying to like chase down this killer and everything, and we get like brief moments of the killer, but quite literally, without spoiling anything, he's not in it a whole bunch, but when he's in it, he fucking dominates the screen. Like
Mhm.
Micah Monroe, she does well with what she's doing in the movie, but without Nicolas Cage being in this movie, no one would be talking about it. It's his movie, and I think it was just executed to a perfect way. Like, I want to give it a 5 out of 5, and I'll probably be up there eventually, especially on rewatches. But it takes you some places where, similar to like Watchers and stuff, where like you think it might be doing something, but it not necessarily. So, if you're in for the ride, I think it's a great payoff by the end. But overall, I gave it a 4 out of 5 walking out of the theater. I took my mom to go see this movie, and she actually loved it. She likes, like, we watch Criminal Minds and stuff all the time and different like true crime horror stuff. And it kind of falls, I wouldn't say it's as much of a horror movie as it is like a crime thriller because it's really like tracking down long legs and trying to figure out like he sent like it's almost like Zodiac in a way too, where like he's leaving like cryptic messages at these scenes and everything, and they kind of have to track down who it is and whatnot, but he never leaves DNA behind or anything.
Mhm.
So it's pretty wild, but 4 out of 5. Is it one of the best movies of the year right now? In my opinion, I think, let me look real quick, but I want to say if it's not in my top 10, it's damn near very close because it's just so, I don't want to say unique because I've said it a bunch of times today, but it is truly like in its own kind of world. Like people, like I said, they're going to compare it to Silence of the Lambs, and I can see that, but I feel like Oz Perkins kind of sets himself apart. Where like, I don't know, it's a very cool experience, and definitely check it out in theaters if you still can. 'Cause I know it's probably running a little bit lower because it's been out for about a month now. I want to say at least a couple
No, it's
weeks.
good. It's got pretty good showtime still. It's been out for only like 2 weeks.
I thought it was like 3 now, but anyway, yeah, I don't think I don't know how many showtimes it's still holding on to in my theater, but I'm hoping with Deadpool and stuff it still holds on because it deserves to be watched, especially just hearing people's reactions to certain parts, I think would be very rewarding.
Hmm. No, I'm excited about it. I got it spoiled for me when I worked on it. So that was frustrating, but like I'm a big Nick Cage guy. I'm sure I'm really gonna like it. It's the next priority for me to watch. So I'll be,
Just get like
I'm
really
already
stoned
sold.
or something before going in, and maybe you'll forget about the twist.
Yeah, if only, if only. But no, I'm excited. I'll definitely be there. One that I wanted to bring up, like I said earlier, Horizon and American Saga. I watched. I fell asleep, and I also went number two twice during the movie. Well, I'm on medication right now,
Well,
so
yeah,
that didn't help.
and I have to
Uh,
imagine you missed nothing.
I missed nothing. Well, I came back and like it was an hour into the film, and Kevin Costner was actively being courted for sex by one of the most attractive women I've seen on camera all year. And it's like, come on, Kevin. I know that you dyed your mustache. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. And yeah, that was another thing that was annoying. All the women in the movie were like so attractive, and it's like, no, they weren't. It's the
Yeah,
1800s. Stop it. Like, why does it look like she's wearing makeup?
they're all
Shut up.
attractive and they all want to fuck Kevin Costner because he's the director. It's like, chill
Yeah,
out, dude.
yeah, and they're all so clean and stuff, and it was just like, I don't know. I don't really go for something like this for sex appeal, and I felt like I got a lot of it, and that was weird. But yeah, I don't know. It's one of those where it's like I'm happy Kevin Costner was ambitious and tried to do something big, and like, but it really just feels like he just wanted to play cowboy,
I must
dress
say,
up.
I was excited that he was stepping away from Yellowstone, the TV show about him being a cowboy asshole, only to
Mhm.
direct a movie about him being a cowboy asshole. So I was like, what are we doing here, Kevin? I was like, you're making me not like you anymore because you keep doing all these roles that I don't like.
Unfortunately, Kevin Costner is Zack Snyder for old people. I don't know if you ever caught up on Rebel Moon Part 1 and 2. But luckily for you, you get to watch it for the first time the way it was meant to be seen. The director's cut, which is 3 hours long for each part. And, like, I don't know, as if he didn't have creative control from the jump. Like,
I
it's
don't
just
want to.
bullshit, Like, well, it's just, I don't know, like, that's what makes you really appreciate stuff like Ty West, being ambitious and doing his big trilogy. But
Well,
those movies are very, inexpensive to make, you know?
that, and I feel like, well, I can't speak to Rebel Moon, haven't seen them, but I feel like Ty West probably had this whole trilogy probably mapped out pretty early on, especially after making Pearl so quickly afterward that I have to imagine he knew his endpoint with Maxine and everything too. So
Mhm.
I feel like planning and pre-production probably plays a lot into his success when it comes to especially sequels and whatnot.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I don't know. I know that they're already shooting the third part of Horizon, and I know that the second part it just got pulled from theaters. It was supposed to come out in August, and it's not anymore. It will come out probably later, which is just really sad. But yeah, you're just kind of hanging out. It's just kind of like very familiar territory. Like you've seen this story before. Old man has to take care of like this young girl, out in the West. It's just so
Logan,
derivative. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Which Logan's derivative of many things.
yeah.
So I like Unforgiven. Like it's just the same shit that I'm watching over and over again. There's nothing really that stands out about it that's great. And the score and the cinematography are both beautiful, but other than that, no, I did not enjoy hanging out with these characters in the Wild Wild West. But yeah, I gave it like a 2 because I thought it was a failure, and
Well,
I can't imagine recommending someone stay for 3 hours.
another one that I believe neither of us enjoyed.
Oh, The
Russell
Exorcism.
Crowe's newest movie,
Yeah.
The Exorcism. Holy
Yeah.
shit. I so The Pope's Exorcist came out not too long ago, and I saw it on Netflix, never actually saw it in theaters, and I pleasantly enjoyed it. It was ridiculous, but watching Russell Crowe driving around in a Vespa through the Italian countryside trying to help people, I thought that was fun. But this one, I like for a minute, I was like, oh, Pope's Exorcist 2, sweet. And then I was like, wait, I saw the trailer. I was like, no, it's not that. But I was like, it's a cool idea. We're doing like a haunted set. We've seen different stories about haunted sets and stuff. This could be cool, but holy shit, this movie was fucking boring.
Yep.
Barely anything ever happens, and when it does, it's just like, oh, I've seen that done better before in something else. And it's just like, even when like sorry, at the end, Russell Crowe gets possessed. Big spoilers. And I
Mm.
mean, he was better at playing possessed in The Pope's Exorcist than he was in this one. It's like everything I liked more about The Pope's Exorcist, you're just doing wrong in this one.
Yeah, poo poo bad movie. Don't like it. I have nothing
Yeah,
great to add about it.
there's nothing too much still to add at this point, other than it's okay. But
Yeah,
the
yeah, I
one,
think you give it like 2 out of 5.
yeah, the one I want to talk about more than that, though, and this is the last movie I actually have on my list right now.
Mm.
I saw the TV Glow. Now, this one, I saw it get released. It never actually released in a theater near or that near to me. So I never got to actually see it until a few weeks ago. But I've sat on it for a little bit. And the more I've learned about it, watching it in the beginning, I wasn't quite sure about it. But I ended up really, really liking it.
Mhm. I think it got better over time for me. I enjoyed the vibe. I enjoyed the themes of the movie, and I think Justice Smith. I think he did a great job.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I it made me want to go back and watch this director's other big stuff, and I want to see what they do going forward. I give it like a 3 out of 5. I wasn't like crazy about it, but I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, I could see myself even bumping it up to a 5 eventually, just because learning that the director was trans and kind of interpreting the story as it's obvious the more I keep thinking about it, as it's literally like Justice Smith's character. Not really spoilers, because I don't think many people watching this are gonna watch that movie. But it's basically like them growing up and trying to figure out who they are as a person, even in their own sexuality. Because I mean, they centered around this obsession with the TV show, but Justice Smith's obsession is more like almost learning about like his own like inner woman almost through this new friend, even though they don't talk that much, but he learns about it through the show too. And it's literally like toward the end where he freaks out and everything. It's like him almost coming to the realization that it's almost too late and that he's wasted his whole life being this other person, but he's actually someone else completely. And it's there was a like I watched a few like ending explain videos on YouTube and shit like that to really come to this realization. But the more that like and I love movies like this sometimes where like when it first ended, I wasn't sure where I was on it. Like I liked all the 90s references and stuff, and there was a lot there that they were kind of referencing to in their own childhood, I guess, because like the characters when the guy goes outside at one point and there's like two dudes standing outside, those are literally characters from a Nickelodeon show in the 90s called The Adventures of Pete and Pete. That's like all about like different like abstract like aliens and stuff coming to this small town and stuff, like very weird and abstract like shooting of the show and stuff too, similar to how they shot this movie and everything and how they edited it together. But there's a lot of and like the actual person who's playing Justice Smith's stepdad or whatever, that's very like, you have to be a man and you can't watch that show, it's for girls and shit like that. Like that's what they were kind of telling him throughout the movie, and like the mom was like, oh yeah, sorry sweetie, you can't watch that show and blah blah blah, you can't stay up past your bedtime, strict rules. And that was actually Fred Durst from the band Limp Bizkit, who was very popular in like the late 90s, early 2000s. So like they slid in little pop culture references there that like if you're big in pop culture, you'll see those kind of stuff, but they're not like how you kind of explained with Wolverine and Deadpool, where they're like shoving everything in your face, like, ha, remember this, remember this. They kind
Mhm.
of subtly put in those references where if you get it, you get it. If you don't, whatever, that's not going to really matter too much. But
Mhm.
there's just so much in here that like the more I've looked back at it, the more I'm finding more and more to love about it. And yeah, I say this is Justice Smith's best movie easily. Like the performance, it's subdued a lot because it's someone going through this horrible thing like internally, like a battle almost of trying to figure out who they are.
Mhm.
And like especially like the old age, like the aging part at the end, I thought that was so crazy. And like at first I was like, what the fuck are we trying to say here? But then the more I think about it, it's just it's one of those movies that I feel like later in life, especially as people revisit it, I think it'll have more and more respect from people.
Yeah, I could definitely see myself rewatching it, and I could definitely see myself getting it on Blu-ray.
Yeah, I'm excited to get it, and I hope they have like some special features. Like I'd love a director commentary for this one to just try to talk about all the different, especially because like visually, this movie is so stunning. And it could have easily not been, because it's
Mhm.
a very there's not a whole lot going on. Like I'm saying all of that stuff, but a lot of that is subtext. Like there's not a whole lot of even dialogue in this movie to really remember.
Mhm.
It's a lot of just like going through and kind of just seeing all this stuff happen in this person's life.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I thought that it was very impactful. I liked some of the practical effects in there too.
Yeah,
Um, I liked there was a musical number from an artist, a pretty big artist in there in the
yeah,
middle. I like that a lot. But yeah, I think it's a good movie. I saw this a long time ago. I
yeah,
saw this like months
yeah.
ago.
I'm quite late to the train on this one, but
Mm,
I'm hoping that more people will see it eventually and take our recommendations for it. It's on VOD now and shit, and
mm,
I highly recommend checking it out for just the experience alone. It's like especially if you're in like the queer community and stuff like that, I think it's a very good movie to kind of I don't know, just kind of almost feel comfortable if you're going through internal struggles or anything like that, to kind of find solace that you might not be alone or something like that. Like it seems like this character very much feels, unfortunately.
mm. What was your rating?
I think I could put it at a 4 out of 5, but like I said, I'd certainly put it higher eventually.
Mhm. Um, Speaking of recommendations, what's it called? Because I know we're running a little long here today, but that's good. A lot of good movies coming out. You recommended on our last episode that I watched The Crow, and which is one that I had avoided for a long time because I just didn't think it really appealed to me. Wonderful film. Wonderful film. I can't wait to buy it on Blu-ray and rewatch it. I think I gave it a 4, but I think I could be on a rewatch at a 5. I love the performance. I love the look. I love the soundtrack. It's not my kind of music, but it fits this world so well. And it's your basic like revenge murder plot thing. But I really love the angle that it comes at it from. So a really wonderful recommendation. Thank you.
Hell yeah. And I watched the first ever Bad News Bears and actually watched all of them in that first weekend just to knock them all out. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. Like you said, there are some parts that are a little bit dated for sure, because it is from the 70s and people definitely talked a bit different back then.
Oh yeah.
But overall, it's a damn good, fun sports comedy. And especially like the only thing I knew about it going into it was that the guys who actually ended up making Friday the 13th after produced Bad News Bears, like Sean Cunningham and stuff. Like those
Mhm.
guys, they were trying to get money to make a horror film and stuff like that, and they knew they could make money making like a family comedy and shit like that. So they made Bad News Bears.
Yeah, it's one that I hold near and dear to my heart. I rewatched it actually as well. But it's one of my three favorite sports movies of all time. I love baseball. I hate the Yankees. And that movie's all about like, what Little League is supposed to be all about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd say the second one's still fun enough too, and it has like an interesting story with like the kid visiting his dad and whatnot. But the Japan one, I couldn't really get into whatsoever.
Oh yeah, the sequels are awful. Um, But yeah, any other last call for any other recommendation or the was it the movies that we watched on each other's voodoos? I will say one
Oh,
that I watched that from your voodoo specifically that I found myself really surprised how much I liked is Peanut Butter Falcon. I really like the actor, what's it called? Shia LaBeouf, not the human being.
yeah,
I thought he was like really great, like one of his best performances ever in this film. Obviously it handles, what could be sensitive subject matter, and I think that they handled it really well. And the ending of this film is really satisfying. There was a place where I thought that they were gonna, go with it, and I'm really happy that they went that direction. And it's really sweet, it's really fun. What's the number one rule? Party. It's such a feel good, happy, fun, good movie. I really appreciated it.
yeah, I adore that movie. I've been championing it for a long time. It actually came out when I was living in Florida still, and I like the first Showtime it had in Florida, I immediately ran to it. So
Yeah, I'm
beautiful.
very
It has
happy.
a lot of like actual wrestlers in it too. Like when they do like the outdoor wrestling stuff and
Yeah,
like
at the end.
so yeah, that part there's actual like wrestling guys that I've known since I was like a kid. So all of that together of me just being a wrestling fan and that whole lovely story, like it's a very simple movie, but it's just so much fun and it's again, it's like a vibe movie where it's just like it's so positive and you're just leaving smiling.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I'm very, very happy. I was like, that might be one of the favorite first time watches from your voodoo that I've ever
It
seen. And
makes me
I'm
so
into the shits these days. So like, sorry, but there's a lot of bad shit. Like I just finished
oh
The Spy Who Dumped Me today.
oh
The fuck was that?
I have so much. Like Spy Who Dunked Me, I literally only have because Regal, I don't know if they still do it, but back in the day when I was going there, if you saw certain movies, they'd give you digital copies when like they came available. And that was one of them. Like I paid $0 for that movie, but I have the because I used it with a movie pass too, so I literally didn't pay for it in any means. But I got
Mhm.
it and own it forever. But I didn't hate it seeing it in theaters, but it's just like one of those movies where I will never go back and rewatch it. But
Mhm.
another movie that I watched for the first time on your Voodoo that I'll never rewatch is Memoirs of a Geisha. I
Yeah.
watched that one too, and holy shit, could not get into it whatsoever. And it was just, I don't know, it felt weird that a middle-aged white man was directing this movie as well. It's like,
Yeah.
what are we doing here? I feel like nobody really has a real perspective on this. The main girl isn't even Japanese. I think she was from China. So I was like,
Yeah.
we're just missing on every mark here.
Yeah, that was just one that I struggled to get through myself.
But one that just put that all back on the right track was I've seen clips of it before, but the first time ever actually watching it all the way through was Muppets Treasure Island.
That's
Now, the
awesome.
Treasure Island story, obviously, I've known for years, but it was just so beautiful. Tim Curry, all the songs in there. It's just so much fun. You gotta love a good Muppet movie.
That's my personal favorite Muppet movie. Yeah, Tim Curry is my favorite Muppet human actor performance in a Muppet movie. The songs are great. I think it's the best adaptation of that Treasure Island story
Yeah,
because I've seen Treasure Planet, I've read the book Treasure Island, and I just like the relation. I think they nail the relationship between um, Jim Hawkins and son of a bitch, not Blackbeard, fucking what's his name?
Oh,
Long John Silver.
yeah,
And it's the scene at the end of the movie when Long John's escaping away on the rowboats.
yeah.
Spoilers for a movie that came out 30 years ago. But yeah, when he's going away on the rowboats, and then Jim is about to blow the whistle, and he's got the gun on him, and like Tim Curry's so good. Uh, like that
Never
scene
kill
is
your
just so
lad.
impactful,
Yeah.
and I love it so much. All the songs are great, but my personal favorite is Professional Pirate and Love Let Us Here. I think that's a beautiful love number, and it's not on Spotify, and that bothers me so much.
Yeah, it's so much fun. Yeah. I would like thinking about it right now. Oh yeah. So I was looking at the IMDb trivia, and the thing that made me the happiest was that apparently in the last like few years at least, Tim Curry was like interviewed about his career and stuff, and he said that that role was one of his favorite roles that he ever did, just because he had so much fun doing it.
Oh yeah, and then what is it? It's John Cleese, I think.
Yeah, it is.
Jim. And then the first time someone's died in a Muppet movie too.
Yep.
Like, yeah, it's from that '90s era of Muppets where like Gonzo and Rizzo were like way at the forefront. And
Yeah.
this is my personal favorite over Muppet Christmas Carol, which
Gonzo
I know a
always
lot of people
had
hold
like
tight.
almost he had the B plot, but almost infringed on A plot quite often when it came to all those movies.
Oh yeah. Well, because like whereas I think Caine, the thing he does great in Muppet Christmas Carol is he plays it really straight, whereas I think Tim Curry out Muppets the Muppets. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So it's two totally different things. It's really just what you're there for. But I really wish they did more of these Muppet, like adaptations of like whatever. Do Star Wars next. Do the Avengers. I
Yeah.
don't care.
Exactly. Just have fun with it. The Muppets are there for the taking, and they're not utilized as often as they should be today.
Yeah, but thank you for watching that though. That's awesome. I'm very happy. That's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Hell yeah.
But all right, well, yeah, I got to put some food in my belly. We talked about
Same.
some awesome movies today. Go out to the theaters, everybody. Watch some good stuff. There's great stuff out there. Next time we'll obviously be talking about Deadpool and Trap, so it'll be a huge episode. We will also be talking about our mid-year top 10 lists. We will be finishing that. We just had a lot to catch up on this week.
Yeah.
I just posted my review of Deadpool and Wolverine and Twisters as well. Both I'm very proud of. I'm no longer writing for Disappointment Media, so I'm putting all my efforts into Ass and into Hard reviews. Hard reviews.
Hell
So
yeah.
please check that out, Steve.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump back into film fan reviews, I promise. It's just been so much going on this last year or so. I haven't been uploading as often as I want to, and really don't have a permanent space to really set up for shooting. That's why I'm always like doing videos in my car or something like that, just because it's always so hard to
Hmm.
really coordinate. But gonna get back into the swing of things hopefully here soon, and I'm looking forward to it because I've been missing it. I have so many ideas that I just go in and out of my head a lot, so it'd be fun. I
Hmm.
love doing all those little skits and shit during my reviews, so it'd be good to get back into that.
Well, I appreciate you making some time for me here, buddy. It's always wonderful talking to you, and it's always wonderful talking to you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching this ass. And like, comment, subscribe, follow both of our channels, check out some of our other reviews where we go a little bit more in depth. And what do you got?
Follow us on our letterbox pages too. I'd be writing shit on there all the time, but leave you on this note, get your healthy helping of ass.